How are we today? We thank God for this new week. Today is Tuesday for another core teaching from Learn with Joes. I'm Josephine, the digital educator of Learn with Joes. And I'm continuing today on cosmological arguments. Last Tuesday, I started with an overview of cosmological arguments. So what I'm teaching today is part 2 of the cosmological arguments to go further into explaining what cosmological arguments is all about. But before I continue, let's join Learn with Joes. So once again, Learn with Joes is an academy of knowledge economy. My name is Josephine. I hold a Ph.D., that is doctoral degree in theological studies, precisely in philosophy of religion and theology. And on Tuesdays on this program, on this channel, I teach an aspect of a course in philosophy of religion or theology. On Friday, I discuss some important issues, lessons of life, germane things that are very essential and very good for families, individuals, lessons we can learn from and make use of. Last Tuesday, I started on, I've been talking on the arguments for God's existence. And now I started an overview of cosmological arguments last Tuesday. So today I continue with part 2 of the cosmological arguments. Part 2, cosmological arguments. Let's start with the question. Why is there a cosmos? Well, maybe that question seems a perfectly intelligible one. If there are accounts for things in the cosmos, why not for the whole? The argument is not built on the fallacy of treating every whole as having all the properties of its parts. But if everything in the cosmos is contingent, it seems just as reasonable to believe that the whole cosmos is contingent as it is to believe that if everything in the cosmos were invisible, the cosmos as a whole will be invisible. This is answer by deduction, okay? Another objection is that rather than explaining the contingent of the cosmological argument introduces, I think you are getting what I'm saying here, that rather than to explain the contingent cosmos, you get me, then the cosmological argument introduces a mysterious entity of which we can make very little philosophical or scientific sense. How can positing at least one first cause provide a better account of the cosmos than simply concluding that the cosmos lacks an ultimate account? Let me repeat that so that we are not confused. We know what we are saying. You said another objection. That's another objection. I mean, in this kind of arguments, there are objections here and there, and everybody saying their view for one objection or against the objection. So another objection is that rather than explaining the contingent cosmos, cosmological argument introduces a mysterious entity of which we can make very little philosophical or scientific sense. How can positing at least one first case provide a better account of the cosmos than simply concluding that the cosmos lacks an ultimate account? In the end, the theist seems bound to admit that while the first cause created at all was a contingent matter, if, on the contrary, the theist has to claim that the first cause had to do what he did, will not the cosmos be necessary rather than contingent? Some theists come close to concluding that it was indeed essential that God created the cosmos. If God is supremely good, there had to be some overflowing of goodness in the form of a cosmos. And in understanding this, I want you to see Cressman and Stump in Morris, 1987, on the ideas of Dionysius, the Areopagite, Cyril, 2004, for arguments that God is not free. Get these books or their articles online or something like that to understand more what I'm trying to say here. But this typically reserve some role for the freedom of God, and that seems to retain the idea that the cosmos is contingent. Defenders of the cosmological argument still contend that his account of the cosmos had a comprehensive simplicity, lacking in alternative views. God's choices may be contingent, but not God's existence, and the divine choice of creating the cosmos can be understood to be profoundly simple in its supreme overriding endeavor, namely to create something good. Swinburne has argued that accounting for natural laws in terms of God's will provides for a simple, overarching framework within which to comprehend the order and purposeful character of the cosmos. I'm directing you also to see Foster, the book published in 2004. At this point, we move from the cosmological to the teleological arguments. Defenders of the cosmological argument include Swinburne, Richard Taylor, Ngomene, Timothy O'Connor, Bruce Reichberg, Robert Kuhns, and William Rowe. Prominent opponents include Anthony Flew, Michael Martin, Howard Sobel, Nicholas Everett, and J.L. McKay. The classical cosmological argument, that is Thomas Aquinas. I'm sorry, forget about that form. I don't know how I'll get there. Thomas Aquinas lived between the years, was born in 1224 and died in 1274. He offers a deductive version of the cosmological argument. He states that we witness things in motion. For something to move, it must be moved by something else. So that which moves things either is moved by another thing in motion or is itself unmoved. In which case, an unmoved mover exists. You get what I'm saying? He is talking about things in motion. And for anything to move, something is moving it. It's either the thing that is moving it is being moved itself, or there is unshakable or movable mover. So the former option invokes an infinite regress of movers, which is impossible. For one thing, it will involve moving an infinite number of things in finite time. When there are so many movers moving and moving and moving things in motion. For another, if one removes the cause, one removes the effects. but an infinite series has no first cause. So, and thus can have no effect. So finally, if all the causes are instrumental causes, there is no first cause to bring about the effect. Hence, there must be an unmoved mover, which religious believers believe to be God. And that is the classical cosmological argument put together by Thomas Aquinas. So the cosmological argument from contingency, and that is Brunner's R. Reshban 5. I now remember why I put 4, 5. I'm pointing to some references where you can read them more further. So my reference point 4, I don't know if I have it on the slides, but in my PDF, my reference point 4 is Thomas Aquinas, and my reference point 5 is Bruce Reshban. Some theists claim that God's existence best explains the existence of a contingent universe. Bruce Reshban, born in 1943, explored the need for explanation. Nothing the defense is giving for versions of the principles of sufficient reason and causation. So in his own model version of the principle of sufficient reason, according to which whatever is contingent or comes into being needs an explanation, is what the cosmological argument must invoke to succeed. So after distinguishing scientific from personal explanation in terms of intention, he notes that theists have held that a variety of things, including individual contingent things and the universe, require an explanation. He then presents a version of the cosmological argument from contingency and defends it against 3 serious objections. The first is that the universe just is. The second is that one explains the whole by explaining the parts. And the third is that the conclusion of the argument is contradictory. In the end, Reshban suggests that a necessary being or God to whom the principle of sufficient reason is inapplicable provides the best explanation in the cases it considers. Critique of Anselm's cosmological argument, Gonilo. The monk, Gonilo is a monk who lived in the 11th century, raises a number of objections to Anselm's arguments. First, Gonilo charges that Anselm has confused having a concept of something with discovery, whether that thing exists. There are 2 different things. Second, if Anselm is correct, we cannot deny that God exists, which will make this argument for God's existence useless. Third, he states that Anselm wrongly presupposed that we are able to conceive of or understand God himself. Finally, Gonilo argues that we cannot reason from the existence of something in our understanding to the fact that it exists in extramental reality. For by such reasoning, we could show that unreal objects like an island with unsurpassable attributes exist. So first one has to show that it exists in reality. Because I'm keeping this short, I don't want it to be too long. Because I'm keeping it short, I don't want it to be too long. I'm going to stop here. And I'm going to continue with this argument next Tuesday. Please join me next Tuesday. I want to wish you a wonderful week. Please join me on Friday for another Friday tonic. I remain yours, Josephine. Have a very wonderful week.